Hello, everybody. Uh, Once again, I'm new at this, so bear with me. Try to do my best. Uh, First, I'm going to give it a minute here and see if I get any questions from anybody. See if anybody's even in the room. Okay. All right. Anyways, I'll get to what I have then. I got two words that we're going to concentrate on tonight that Forrest has spoken in interviews. And on Terry Scant 5911, you'll find a word called revuelette or revuelette. I'm pretty sure that's how it's pronounced. And the other word that we're going to focus on is arroyo. Arroyo. Yeah, arroyo. These were clues that Forrest put out in these two interviews. And the arroyo is in, if you go to Terry Scant 9124, I did some cross-referencing so I can make it easy for everybody to go and check out what's going on. So we'll start with arroyo. I didn't know what to call in there when Forrest talked about as I've gone in there alone with my treasure board. It's somewhere special and dear to him. And if you read this from Terry Scant, you'll understand, and it gives them, in my opinion, some confirmation to what I believe in and what I do know. The definition of arroyo is a steep-sided gully formed by flowing water in an arid or semi-arid region. Now, I want to show you guys a picture here that will show you an arroyo. This is an arroyo. But right here behind my brother and my son, it's not as steep because this is where this was backfilled in. But the further that you come this way, it's almost straight up and down. And this was formed by the running water in this stream that came by and washed this back because there was a mudslide that went clear over to here. And if you're there, you can see that the tree line is up further. And it's because when this mudslide happened, it took out everything over here. So, but in time, this creek took back and made a gully right here. And it's called an arroyo. And the reason that this is important, as far as Forrest goes, when he was in his 40s or something like that, if you go to Terry Scant 9124, you can read the article where it talks about a man pulled in beside him at a gas station in Wyoming, and he had found a skeleton of a horse and a Spanish person. Now, Forrest said that, you know, he's not going to call him a conquistador, but he did say that he was an explorer, and this fits perfectly. And how the rancher found, I'll back up here a little bit, how the rancher that had the skeleton found the bones was it was sticking out of an arroyo, which is basically what I just showed you. And that's significant. And the reason I think Forrest told that story is that, for one, it's an interesting story. And for two, he's telling you what he found there. You know, I don't know if it was a Spanish guy. You know, I don't know if I'd go that far. But, it's, you know, if Forrest specified that, then there might be some relevance there. But like I said from the very beginning, that Forrest found something sticking out of the side of that bank, and I'm 100% convinced that it was Dead Man Jones. And then Forrest made that sepulcher right there on the same arroyo, the steep bank, and then he hid it in there. And that gives me up to another point I wanted to discuss today, is that I realized that there's two time frames for Forrest. The first time frame is after he found Dead Man Jones and did his own little archaeology thing there. He made a sepulcher and gave a proper burial to Dead Man Jones. And it wasn't until years later, after probably the poem was written and he needed to do his blaze, that he backfilled it and made the X/F out of the wood. So the first time frame is that Forrest found Dead Man Jones, buried him, and then later on, after he had the poem written or whatnot, he backfilled it and made the X, made his puzzle that he put there. So he can say for a long time that he did hide it, that he hid it in the sepulcher with Dead Man Jones. And then later on, he entombed it and buried it, in which there's, if you go to Terry Scant, look that up, you can find out that, you know, there was a section there where he talked about all that. And, but yeah, and these stories that Forrest tells in his books and to other people, you know, if he's using an interesting word that could be just a basic word, like he found a skeleton sticking out of the bank, you know, that's simple, easy, everybody could understand that. But I didn't know what an arroyo was. I don't know how many of you guys know what an arroyo is or knew what one was, but that's what it was. And the fact that he told the story about the skeleton being found, you know, it's pretty interesting. That would have been pretty cool to see. And Forrest got to keep some tacks or something out of the guy's back of his pickup truck that he found that was off the horse's saddle or something like that. So that there gives me some evidence, indirect evidence. Indirect, I mean, one thing I've learned over the last 5-6 years now is that when Forrest does these interviews, there's always something in them. Almost always. I can't say every single time, but every time he's giving something out there, a hint. Only he knows. You would almost be in my shoes, standing at the place where the blaze was, to understand what he's talking about. Just like this arroyo. I understand it because I spent 5 years there digging. I know he found something there. I know he pulled two objects out of the ground there. There's no doubt in my mind. And that leads me into something else, that Forrest is not a fan of archaeologists. He's not a fan of the government. Let me see here if I can find my notes. I'm not very good with notes, so please bear with me. Like here in Terry Scamp 5911, he talks about he doesn't think a man getting caught digging a hole is a big deal. Digging a hole is a little thing compared to the big things in the rest of the world. He believes that each American should have about 2.086 acres of land that they can pretty much call their own, that the federal government owns. Here's a definition. Here's one that I like. He has a definition of what's the difference between a looter and an archaeologist. The difference is one has a permit and the other one doesn't. So he's pretty much saying that in his mind and in his view, the only difference between an archaeologist and me is they have a PhD and he and I don't. So he bought his own Pueblo and did his own stuff. And I'm pretty much sure that the archaeologist community does not like Forrest at all. I can't say that with certainty, but I've got enough feel and some comments that I do believe that that is the situation, that they don't like each other. And I don't think they like me too much neither. Because I did dig. I mean, I made a hell of a mess. I ain't going to deny that, but I always had the intentions of fixing it when I was done. Once I had the chest, I was going to donate to Heron State Park. I was going to make what I did right. But that's that. I got some comments here. I'm going to read them. And let me see if there's any questions. Okay, these are just some comments. Wasn't no questions. If anybody has any questions, that's why I'm here. About the elevation, anything. I mean, digital treasure maps. What is special about the location that he would throw his body there? He found Dead Man Jones there, and that's significant to him. He's a thinker. I mean, I know the word I want to say. I just can't think of it right now. But in the third book, he talks about Mummy Joe and that he wishes that in Cody, Wyoming. Everybody wants to know what's important about Cody, Wyoming. It's Mummy Joe. Mummy Joe is probably one of the most important things in Cody, Wyoming to Forrest Fenn, because Forrest would hang out in the cave and he didn't know Mummy Joe was there. So as Forrest would sit on his rock and contemplate, think, what all Forrest did, and then but he never knew Mummy Joe was there. And then they excavated Mummy Joe out, and then he's like, oh, and so he went back after they excavated Mummy Joe, and he regretted, in his third book, he pretty much saying he regretted not knowing he was there, because he would basically had a conversation with him. And when he found Dead Man Jones, that was his Mummy Joe, basically. So he made a sepulcher. He put him in the sepulcher, doing a respectful thing. I believe he took his muzzle loader and gunpowder horn and maybe some other artifacts that he had found there. But of course, I mean, what was it going to do laying there and just finish rotting away? Of course, why wouldn't you take it? An archaeologist would say, no, it belongs in a box in a basement somewhere with a label on it. No, I don't believe that, and Forrest doesn't believe that. It needs to be out for people to see. Need to be in collections. This stuff just hidden in museums and in basements and everything is crazy, and it's insane that the archaeology community just has total control now of everything. They have the laws in the federal government that they find anything. You find an arrowhead on federal property and you take it, just like Forrest says, you just committed a felony because you just stole from federal property. And that's crazy. That ain't right. And okay, let me get back on subject here anyways. Let's see. What was the elevation here? It was 7,146 feet. When Forrest was on the TV thing and he was going to give that as a clue, he started out saying 7 and he caught himself and then said 5,000. And when I watched that, I found it completely hilarious because I knew there was 7,146 feet. And so answer archaeology. I'm not sure what you mean, Hush. From the parking spot to the chest location, what was the total distance? Could it be done twice in a single afternoon? That's Robert Selinsky. I hope I got to get him right, Robert. 200 feet from the road, Robert. you could park right there beside it. Doesn't take long to walk to the spot and back. 200 feet's not even a football field, a little over half a football field. That's how he knows people's been within 200 feet of it. All they had to do was tell him that they walked up that along 95 there, going from Heron Lake down to Lake Alvado's boat ramp. He knows once they were told that they drove down there, he knew they were within 500 feet. And if they said that they walked up it, then he knew that they were within 200 feet. That's how close to the road it is. So it was really nothing for him to walk from his car there back to his car and then back over. The thing he had to wait for was make sure that there was no vehicles coming, in which the location's perfect for that. I mean, you got about a 3/4 of a mile view one way and about a 1/4 of a mile view the other way, but you can hear vehicles coming. You know, it was like, it's perfect. So just like I did when I took tolls over or whatnot, you know, I just waited. I made sure no one was coming, and then we could go right over, you know, take all kinds of stuff over there. Gallons and gallons of water, digging bars, metal detectors, picks, you know, sledgehammers, water pump, generator. So that's how Forrest was able to get it over there and back. It wouldn't have been that difficult for him at all. See what for Scott for Forrest, that hush. I'm not sure what that means, Robert. I got a thumbs up. Where have you searched? Seth wants to know where I've searched. Lake Gardo, I think that's what it was. There's an old military fort coming in from Colorado. Gardo, Fort Gardo, I think it's called. There's a jet right next to the road. In my search map, I was looking for, I graded the different lakes I wanted to search. They had a sea. I was pretty sure it wasn't going to be there, but we were literally driving right by it. So we stopped and we took a look at it, and it didn't take me long to realize it wasn't there. And then we went to Lake Heron, and you know, within 4 hours, I found the blaze, and it was luckumstance. That's my word, luckumstance. Circumstances got me there, but it was luck that things fell together. Just like Forrest has said, I was reading earlier. I don't know if I have it written it down for you where you can find it in Terry Scant, but he said straight up that once you found the first clue, that the next clues will progressively get easier. So once you found one, then two would be a lot easier than one, then three would be easier than two, and then four, and so on until you got to that sixth or seventh clue, which is the blaze. And that's exactly what happened. What I thought it wasn't it. Once I realized that the boat ramp, putting in water high, once I realized that that was plural as a multiple, and you're putting boats in, but water high, and that's your heavy loads. Once that clicked, then the stream went right past the boat ramp. And okay, sorry, but yeah, Hasha, it is in New Mexico. Heron State Park is in New Mexico. Did you camp at the site? No, there's a lodge, campsite type of deal, basically a half a mile away, if that. It's called Stonehouse Lodge. Miriam's the owner. If you're ever in New Mexico and you're up there, she has a cafe and a little fishing shop there. Stop in, say hello. If you need a place to stay there. It's awesome. She's a great person. Manny's her maintenance guy, and his little dog. It's an awesome place to go. So I would go there if you ever had the chance. Hi everyone. 5. There was no. I was so sure. Made a comment about 500 feet off the road, and if the repair workers needed to fix the road. The repair workers had plenty enough room to fix the road. When I started this, there was no power line. But by the time I ended it, there was a power line that was only 10 yards away from my hole. And that's when my first set of tools got stolen. So someone knew I dug there, but I don't know if they reported it or not, but I never got caught there until I got ratted on. Digital treasure maps. Do you think the feds have an obligation to dig up the bones of Dead Man Jones, the treasure itself? I absolutely do. And I'm going to make sure, as they're going to make sure, that they're going to hold me accountable for whatever crimes that they can try to pin on me. That everybody involved, when the next person passes away, and which is unfortunate because it's not needed, it could be stopped. The whole thing could be stopped right now. The state police called for Forrest to put an end to it. How serious are they? I called the state police to turn myself in half a year before I got caught because people dying meant something to me. I knew where it was. I wanted it to end. This chase became a burden to me. I knew it was there. I didn't know how long it was going to take me to dig it, but every time somebody would die, that would play on me pretty hard. And so I called the state police to turn myself in, and they blew me off. You know, and somebody says, well, they get thousands and thousands and thousands of tips. But you know what? They need to start following up on every one of them because, you know, just like the Washington, D.C. shooters, they were tipped off. They were told that it was for ransom. They blew it off and more people died. But yeah, and I think that it's no different for the BLM, federal government, the people involved. If they're intentionally not finishing the dig to see if the treasure is there or to see if Dead Man Jones is there, that should be enough for an archaeologist to want to know by itself. But if they're willingly doing it for personal reasons, which I believe that there's some of that involved through some personal Facebook accounts, you know, I think it's pretty clear what some people think. So I think that they would rather let it in the ground instead of confirming a treasure hunter had found a $3 million chest. I honestly believe that. And I believe that when somebody gets seriously hurt or passes away, there's going to be consequences. And I'll make sure that whoever loved ones is left, that they'll know everything. What is the home of the brown? I believe it's brown trout because if you go up to Miriam's up there, you'll find out that she has a world record brown trout on the wall, and she'll tell you right where it was caught. And if you go there, and she'll have one of her guides take you right to where the fish are on the Chama River, right in that area. You know, so they know where about the fish are going to be. Chama River. You go to Chama. You go to any of the stores, any of the restaurants. There's these huge, I mean, huge brown trout that are hanging on the walls everywhere. And they're all caught in the Chama River. Lake Heron, which is Willow Creek, goes into the Chama Canyon and into the Chama River. So the brown trout don't stop at Lake Heron. Excuse me. The Chama River continues and goes down to Lake Alvado. And then you get into lake fish and stuff like that. So the native brown trouts, they're not going to go into the lake water. They're going to stay in the Chama River where their food and everything's at. And people love to fly fish there. I mean, it's a huge sport right there. When I did an interview with Huffington Post, the fellow that was the reporter, he loved to fly fish. And as we was coming back up from where warm water halts, you look down in the water and there was these massive trout around these big rocks. I mean, he was so beside himself he didn't bring his fishing gear because he would have loved to get in there and fish. So I believe it's brown trout. Now, I was told of another brown, home of the brown, in that same location, that could work. I won't discredit, I won't tell what it is, but either way, it doesn't change mine at all. Either one of them could be the home of the Brown and be correct, and not change nothing else. Let me see. There's also rocks. Made a comment about movement of leaves, sticks, rocks, etc. Yes, it is hidden. Yeah, it's hidden. It was hidden. Uh, it was hidden by all that, and then 12 feet of dirt. Digital treasure maps. No, I was expecting to find the treasure itself, full of what he said it was in it, and I was expecting to find Ed Man Jones. That's my last couple years there. I wasn't. I was looking for the treasure, but I knew the treasure was going to be in a tomb, so I was looking for a tomb. So we had to go down, dig down, and then we were digging in. We went down to bedrock, and we were digging in. That way we couldn't bypass it. That was some of the problems I had on earlier on. We were digging here and then bouncing, and we were jumping around, and we started digging up a lot of our own dirt that we dug before. And so we just cut a line, a trench, and we were just working our way in. And that was working great. I mean, I learned how to detect rocks in that blue clay, and we were close. There was a rock that was exactly what I was looking for, about 2 feet by 2 feet, and I could tell right where it was. The signal was coming all around it like a halo, like if you had a bright light and you had something in front of it, and the light beams went all around the rock. I mean, around the object. You know, you could see that there was a light source behind that object, and that object blocked the light, but the light was shining past it. That's exactly that's how to look at it with what I was dealing with. There was an object that was in the blue clay that was blocking the frequencies coming back from the metal for the metal detector. So it was basically just going the whole way around that rock. And so that's how I could tell there's a rock there. Because you take the metal detector and you got a good signal, beep, 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 beep. You get to where the edge of the rock is, it stops. Nothing, nothing, nothing. And then you go so far, it goes beep, 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 beep again. And you do that the whole way up the sides, and then you do it up and down. So there's no doubt, there's absolutely no doubt there's a rock right there. It's about 2 feet, 2.5 feet by 2 feet, 2.5 feet, good size rock. And I believe all you got to do is tip it down, and there's the tomb. I was at the, no doubt, no more than 4 feet away, probably 2.5, 3 feet away when the park ranger showed up. Seth says, yeah, I thought the treasure wasn't buried. Forrest never said it wasn't buried. He says that he hid it, but he says he won't say if it's buried or if it's not buried. There was a reporter recently that came back out of an interview with Forrest and twisted his words a little bit to make it sound like he said it wasn't buried. But what Forrest was saying, like he always says, is that I'm not saying it's buried, and I'm not saying it's not buried. And so he kind of said it in a little bit of a different way because of whatever reason, because the reporter kept hounding him about it or whatnot. And then so the reporter then took it upon that person's self to make it sound like Forrest said it wasn't buried. But if you look and find some of his early interviews, you'll find out that he specifically said it was buried, and he never corrected himself. One was a radio interview, and I can't remember who he was talking to, but if you look it up, you can find it, where he comes right out and says it's buried. And the guy that he's talking to, says, well, because at this point, this was early on, so it wasn't like this big thing about if it was buried or if it wasn't buried. So when Forrest said it was buried, the person that he was talking to just assumed it was buried. And so he went on with the interview, and some of the questions were about being buried and whatnot, or made comments about it being buried. And Forrest never once stopped him and said, no, it's not buried. It's not buried. You guys need to go back to those early interviews because he tells you it's buried. And then he probably started getting questioned about it. And then he didn't want that to be a clue. So then he did his media campaign, because that's what the media do. They like to twist shit around to make it fit what they want it to, or to throw you off the trail. Forrest says that, it's not going to say it's buried. I'm not going to say it's not buried. I hid it. And I don't know if everybody was here earlier on when I was talked about, there was two time frames when Forrest, there's time frame when Forrest found Dead Man Jones, made a sepulcher and buried him, and then he hid the chest in there with him. And then he did the poem, and then sometime during the poem or after the poem is when he entombed it by backfilling it with dirt and some stuff like that. Sozo rocks. Digging can cause injury. Would an older man do this? I doubt it. Sozo, you don't know who Forrest is. And I don't mean that in a rude way. The guy bought his own Pueblo to dig in. He dig up 200, I think 200 rooms, and he thinks it's only 1% of what's there. The guy loves to dig. And when he found Dead Man Jones there, he dug him up. And yeah, no doubt. I mean, people think that Forrest wouldn't dig, or people think that Forrest wouldn't hide it on a state park. Do some research. You'll find out that Forrest has a distaste for the federal government owning so much land, and you'll find out that he doesn't think someone digging in their 2-acre lot is that big of a deal. But Tower Junction Blaze. Did the picture of Eric Sloan at Tierra Amarillo influence your soul? No, I can't say that I've ever even seen the picture, to be honest with you. I might have saw it and didn't realize that that was the picture I was looking at, but no, no pictures. I didn't even have the book yet when I went out and found the Blaze. I just had the poem from the Hemisphere article. I thought I had the book with me, but then it's been so long ago, but then I revisited it, and then I realized that the book was on back order, so it took a little bit to get to me. Once I learned out about the chase, I was probably out within 2 weeks after learning about it, so there was no time to get the book. Captain Ahab asks, since your hole is filled with water and no one is going to be allowed to dig it back, what do you do now? Right now, I'm dealing with my congressman to deal with the Department of Interior. I don't have a lot of options. I call up lawyers, to try to find some legal help. They all have their own private, personal practice that they do. And there ain't nobody out there has their own private, personal practice for helping treasure hunters out. Unless you're a millionaire and you got a lawyer on payroll where you can just say, okay, yeah, file this lawsuit. Let's get this action taken. There isn't help for people like me. And you'll find it in the criminal system too, where people get treated badly by officials. But since they're not rich or they weren't thrown in jail unjustly for 2 or 3 months and they were only thrown in there for a couple of days, no one wants to help them. Okay, is the stone house your marble gaze? No, it's no. For me, the stone house means nothing more than a great woman owns it, and it's a great place to be. Great view of Lake Alvarado from there. Governors used to go there. I asked Miriam if she remembered Forrest Fenn ever coming there, and she couldn't remember the name because at that time, for all those years, there were so many people come in and out, some famous people, and then just normal people. But I showed her a picture of him, and he definitely looked real familiar to her. So she's pretty sure that she stayed there. And there was a cabin there with cabin number 4. I made sure I stayed there every chance I got. Let's see. Robert asks, how do you think Forrest was able to get that backfield 12 foot of dirt without anyone noticing? Uh, the same way I would go over there at night to take tools or whatnot. I don't know. Sometimes you just gotta be brazen about stuff. I don't know when he did it. I don't know if he did it at night, if he did it at daytime. I know the park has a season, so he'll talk about a season a lot. Park, opens up in May sometime and then shuts down in the fall. So in the off season, there's not many park rangers except for during hunting season or whatnot. So I could see him easily on the off season. Just you can drive right there. When they sunk the telephone pole in 10 yards from my hole, proved that you can drive right there. If you look at satellite photos before they even put the pole in, you can see that it had been driven on because all of the sage was crushed. And where the sage was crushed, you can see that someone drove from point A to point B from the road to that spot, to the bank actually, and then back out to the road. So how or when he did it without getting caught, I don't know that answer, but he did it, no doubt about it. I mean, I found, 8 feet down, a piece of plastic that looked like it went to who knows what, but it was about 10 inches long and it was stuck to a piece of burnt wood. You got to remember, the wood was burnt, but the plastic wasn't melted. And it was 6 to 8 feet down. And, and I found a couple other pieces of plastic that deep. On the top, there was a broken mason jar, half a broken mason jar. It was the top half. You can see the ring, it was broken, but you can tell it was the ring part. And you can see where it slid down the steep hill. And because there was pieces of glass there yet. Now you got to remember, it gets less steep. You go down, gets real steep, and then it starts tapering off from where you backfilled it. At that point, the glass disappears. About 8 feet down, 6, 8 feet down, I found the bottom of the mason jar and other pieces of glass. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind that someone backfilled that right there. I mean, it's evidence, and it's real evidence. And the things I found in there wasn't a lot of garbage, but it was things like a floor tile and some other stuff like that. But yeah, he backfilled it. Okay. Sorry guys, bear with me. John Wood wants to know, did you find any other types of artifacts like arrowheads or anything like that? No, John, I didn't find no artifacts other than where it was backfilled with some plastic, double-headed nail, glass, that floor tile, some plastic stuff, but no artifacts. Now the BLM's trying to say that it was an old logging campsite. They might have camped around there, but they didn't camp on that arroyo because it's a steep bank, and that's where I dug. I didn't dig on no flat. Everything to the left of that is solid bedrock, sandstone bedrock. So they didn't pitch no tents there neither. They're looking to get me, and that's fine, but I'll deal with that when that comes. But no, and if I would not have brought them home. I would have set them to the side and left them there. It was not my purpose to take anything from there, but other than the chest, even if I would have found Dead Man Jones, or even if there was other stuff in there, I would not have took it. I would have left it, and then I would have moved on. Sledneck wants to know how mad the first park ranger was. He was pretty mad because I wouldn't cooperate with him at first. I just kept my mouth shut. which at that point I was ratted out. The guy stole my car, passport, and everything else, so I was screwed. Uh, so I didn't know what they were going to charge me with. So, but then, I'm just like, I did it. I dug the damn hole. I'll take my responsibility. So I told him, I said, I'll take the responsibility for it. And then I didn't. And then I had no idea what I was going to get for punishment from the state, but I ended up getting fines and probation. So also wants to know if GPR used prior to digging. No, I wish I had the ability to check that, but that was above my funds and ability to do. I wish I could, in which it still could be done. And that's one of the things that upsets me with the BLM and the state park is that they could go in there and do that. Nothing else even needs dug at this point. They could go in there with ground penetrating radar and they can see if that chest is there or not. But they won't do it for reasons I explained earlier, is that the last thing they want to do is confirm a treasure hunter. But then after I talked to the park rangers for a little bit, he was cool, and I understand they have a job to do. And I didn't hold nothing personal against them other than the fact that they didn't want to even communicate with me after the fact. It was hard to figure anything out. Josh Street said he made an interesting comment. He says, "Remember that thrill you had searching? Apply that excitement to another interest in your life. The thrill is ongoing and never ending." You're right, Jay. I have a couple partners back here in Pennsylvania, and we do our own treasure hunts here in Pennsylvania. There's a couple good ones that we've been working on for the last couple years. So you might see some of that on TV, you might not. We'll see what happens. Saucer Rock says one has to be thorough on all levels for this. Factual data is required, not assumptions. I agree. I have enough factual data to make my assumptions pretty accurate. There's some things that I won't go out on a limb and say, like how he and when he dumped the backfill, but I'll tell you he backfilled it. I'll tell you there was a tomb there, and Dead Man Jones is there. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind. Sasso Rock says, I've seen him move. Body language tells a lot. I'm not sure which way, you've seen him move, how that tells you. Joel Dunn says, buried could literally mean a couple rocks. Yeah, it could. And I wish that was the case, but no, it wasn't that easy. He said, whoever gets it is going to earn it. But yet a child could walk up to the spot. So if a child can walk up to the spot, that's not really earning it. That's not putting a lot of effort into it to feel it's no place for the meek. Moving two rocks, a meek person can move two rocks if they had to, if there was $3 million under it. Trust me, when a meek person would have a hard time digging, I know personally. I was so sure. Personally, I don't think he was digging deep. No, he didn't dig deep. It was a cliffside, kind of. It's called a arroyo. It's where water washes away the ground and it makes a steep bank. He found Dead Man Jones protruding out of that, and then he dug Dead Man Jones out, and then he made a sepulcher below that, and then he just backfilled it. So he didn't dig. He didn't have to dig deep. It was already open. I had to dig deep because he backfilled it. Jeremiah says, "Don't fall in love with your theory, Scott." It's not about falling in love. It's knowing what you know. If you're boots on the ground at the spot and you spend 5 years digging there and you keep watching his interviews and everything he's saying, and you're like, yeah, for example, he says if you're standing at the treasure where the treasure's at, you can see mountains. Originally he said you can smell pine, you can see pine nuts and smell sage and see wildlife. You stand in my spot, they're all there, every single one of them. Pine nuts are right there, sage is right there, turkeys, elk, mule deer, geckos, you name it. All kind of wildlife there. It's crazy. It's beautiful. Hush wants to know where I'm at. I'm in Pennsylvania. Tower Junction wants to know if my blaze is in Rio Bravo County. Yeah, everything's right there. I mean, it's not far from the beginning to the end. It kind of makes a J, really. I mean, it depends on if you come down the water, if you come down the road. But yeah, you start at the Heron Dam where Willow Creek goes into the Chama River. That's where warm water halts, and then you take it in the canyon down, and then right below that, Lake Alvado, which isn't that far. It's maybe 3-4 miles from the Heron. Not even that, probably 2, 3. And then you just drive down there and you go to the boat ramp, and that's all it's there. You go down that dirt road there. It's a boat ramp, and that's what you do. You put your boat in, and you go out there and have your day, because at Lake Heron it's no wake zone, so you can only have sailboats and kayaks and boats out there with not making no waves. But in Lake Alvado, it's different. You can have more fun down there if you like that kind of stuff. But it's not. And then once you're there, you go back up the stream, and then that's when you find the blaze. Now, at the beginning, not everybody was in here, but there was another word that I wanted to go over. It was called rivulet. Who all in the chat room knows what a rivulet is? Okay, a rivulet on Terry Scant 5911. If you look it up, it's where you'll find that Forrest used the word rivulet. And it's back when he's talking about everybody has so much of their own space, 2-point-some acres or whatnot. And he talks about his Dr. Pepper and sticking it underneath the rock and in a rivulet. And it was a clue. Most people would say stream or creek or whatever, but he made it a point to say rivulet. What a rivulet is, if you look it up, it is the definition of, let me see here. Anyways, a rivulet is a very small stream. And you got to remember that the stream that I went up is this wide, about that deep in most places. Some other places, it might be a deeper hole, but it pretty much stays constantly this wide. I mean, it looks like a road runoff. It doesn't look like a stream, but it's the very definition of a rivulet. Now, Forrest has already told you he went in there. We've got in there, right there, that arroyo that was made because the water washed this back. This was steeper, but he backfilled it. And then right here by this stage is where the blaze is. Now, as you can see, you cannot see a 30-foot long log and some big stumps right there. You had to be right there to see them, and you had to be looking this way. And so that's your arroyo. And I don't know if I have a decent enough picture here of this. I don't, but the stream is very small, and by the very definition, it's a rivulet. And so that there are two very interesting finds and two very interesting clues that Forrest put out in a couple different interviews that some people might have got, but most people probably didn't. I've been almost 50 minutes now, So I'm going to sign off. Is there any pressing questions? I'll take a couple more questions. I'm sorry if I missed any of yours. I'll be doing another part because there is so many clues, so many, and I'm going to explain them all in time. There, if people want to follow, and if they want to follow with an open mind, non-judgmental mind, and really listen to what I'm saying and put it all together, people will all come to the same conclusion that, you know, he did find it. And I'm doing this for one, because obviously I want the chest, and for two, I want to save somebody's life. I was so sure. When's the next show? I'm going to try to do this at the same time next week. I'm going to try to do Monday night, every Monday night at 8. But I'll definitely put a post out. So if you guys subscribe, you'll definitely get the messages and stuff like that. All right. Thanks everybody for watching, and have a good night.